This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Mark, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Brad, I really appreciate being invited on. Thank you so much.
My sincere pleasure. In a few sentences, Mark, can you share, well, I know you can, would you be willing to share who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Mark Netter. I am the CEO and co-founder with my partner, Peter Rafelson, of ElectraCast Media. We are a podcast media company. Our mission statement is to build community and amplify diverse voices through compelling entertainment and story. We do both original podcasts that we co-own and co-produce, but we have also been building out for over a year ElectraCast networks, ECM networks. And these are networks of independently produced podcasts that we help monetize, that we help cross-promote across their networks and other networks. Each of the networks is geared towards a particular audience vertical. We have a best business network. We have a best storyteller network. We have Ruby Network for female empowerment. We have a faith network we've just started called Voices of Faith. So a number of other networks as well. My background comes from the entertainment advertising world. I spent 17 years working in entertainment advertising here in Los Angeles, California. Over the course of those years working as a vendor, I have worked with every major motion picture studio, every major broadcast network, many cable networks, video game companies, some tech companies like Intel and Adobe, and really just learned a lot about entertainment, about marketing. I ended up at Warner Brothers helping to launch DC Universe. And after that, I've transitioned both into ElectraCast and part-time teaching at Los Angeles Film School, where I teach entertainment marketing and a few other courses along those lines.
Love it. It's such a fascinating I'm new to the entertainment industry. I'm fascinated. I've recent contacts in the last year, just through meeting other people, and it's a fascinating industry, one that's very in depth. So you have
and changing all the time. I mean, I want to say the other thing about the entertainment industry, and I tell this to my students, the rapid pace of change is kind of unbelievable. And COVID, for sure, accelerated that change, to move away from broadcast television to streaming television. Right now, we're seeing a big surge in kind of almost going back to the future in ad-supported streaming television. So, Netflix losing market share, Tubi TV, which is completely free and ad-supported, gaining market share, HBO Max with an ad-supported tier, Peacock with an ad-supported tier, and now Netflix announcing an ad-supported tier. So this business is changing at a crazy rapid rate all the time. And one of the things that's exciting about being on the podcast side of things is that podcasts are actually a gateway to television, a gateway to books, even a gateway to movies in certain cases. So that's why we call ourselves a podcast media company. We don't want to forget that there's other media besides podcasts, beyond podcasts, that we'll be targeting over the course of our company's growth as well.
I love it. This is such a fascinating topic. Entertainment itself is a fascinating topic, but in specifically podcasting, and it's just booming. I mean, their podcast is just springing up everywhere. Like it's huge in the market right now, which is great. I mean, I wouldn't be here otherwise, nor would wouldn't have the opportunity to meet you. So it's great. And pretty much anybody can jump in. The question is like, where do you go from there? Right. So it's a fascinating topic. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I think one of the things with podcasting, which has also been true, I mean, one of the other things which I didn't mention in my little bio is that I'm also, I've made a feature film as director and co-writer and producer. It's a movie that we did on a low budget with some big themes called Nightmare Code. It's the first feature film told entirely from the point of view of an artificial intelligence. And the whole movie it's a psychological thriller. It's won a number of awards. And it's very unusual and really, kind of combines sci-fi and some horror elements, but it's saying something about technology. And what was interesting to me about making that movie is that we could make it and we could get it out there on a very low budget, because we're in an age now where the access to distribution, the gatekeepers are gone. When I was a kid, there were 3 networks: ABC, CBS, NBC, and maybe PBS if you could tune it in on the VHF dial, if you were lucky enough to be, or UHF, I forget which one was which. Right. But nowadays, you can publish something on, on YouTube and create a series, a series like Broad City, which ended up on Comedy Central, started out on YouTube. And the 2 comedians who created that show, they built a following there. Amy Poehler found them on there and produced them for Comedy Central. And now they've got fantastic careers. So the great thing is that the barrier to entry has all but disappeared. The negative on that, the thing that makes it more difficult is the idea of discovery. You don't have just 3 channels to choose from, you have infinite channels to choose from. So how do I know what to watch? And every week someone's saying, oh my God, are you watching this show or that show or that show? It's like, dude, I don't have enough time. So how do we discover stuff? How do we find it? And I think for our company, ElectraCast, where we have this network system, the idea is to make it easier and easier to find within ElectraCast shows that you would be interested in. And if you're interested in a particular type of show, a particular subject matter, you might find, a dozen shows around that subject matter within one of our networks. So we're trying to find new ways to win on the discovery game.
I love that. And that is a great point. Really want to highlight and showcase that, because with the information age, the entertainment age that we're in, we're just on demand. Everything's at everybody's fingertips. How do we find the signal in the noise, right? And so personally, I'm constantly saying like, focus to my clients and whatnot, right? And it's a challenge in these days. So if you do have a genre or a particular topic or something you're interested in, you're deep diving and you want to surround yourself with, dozens of people that are talking about that topic, it's really a powerful thing. But we've got to, as consumers, we got to be able to weed through all the noise in order to find that signal. So I love it.
Yeah, predicted back in the 1970s by the great futurist Alvin Toffler in his book Future Shock. He talked about overchoice and that we would be entering the age of overchoice. And I think that what we found that the 2 ways that we find things, one is word of mouth, right? So, and that can be online or it can be real world. It can be a friend telling me you got to watch the show Severance. It can be me going online and finding everybody's talking about, the latest episode of Atlanta, whatever it might be, right? We find things like that way. And the other is curation. So we trust certain influencers, we trust certain sources, we trust certain online or real world publications to tell us what's interesting, what should we be looking at? And so, and then we have various ways that things are curated by various networks. And just one example of curation is when you turn on Netflix, that real estate that they have on that homepage, whether you're on your phone or your computer or your television, what's that up there in the box? When I turned it on and I saw Squid Game, which I'd never heard of before, right? Well, that's Netflix curating something that they, first of all, are pushing because they think it's big. And then everything underneath there, they're using an affinity engine, which is essentially using an algorithm to curate things that, they look at all the stuff that you've liked and watched, and they compare it to their huge database of all the things everybody else has liked and watching and go, okay, his stuff clusters kind of like all these other people cluster, and they can predict what I'll be interested in looking at. And they go even further. This is something I learned from entertainment advertising, from being in that world. When you typically and traditionally create a movie poster, what we call key art, right? There's usually one key art, and there might be a couple of variations or a few different ones. You might have, let's say, 3 posters total by the time you're done. Netflix will do 24 different little tiles, and they will actually show you tiles that are the types of images that you are more likely to click on than not based on your past history of what you clicked on. If you're more into faces, I'll be showing you faces. If you're more into female faces, male faces, if you're more into gear or landscapes or really cool effect shots, they have all this variety and they've categorized it, and it's all data driven. So I think that we're in this age of overchoice, and ElectraCast and other companies are trying to figure out ways to drive people to content that we think are valuable for our audiences.
Love it. Marketing in a nutshell.
Modern
love it.
marketing.
And you're testing all those things all the time. And the common public is not always aware of those things. It's a fascinating topic, Mark. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to switch to a different question here. I love what you're delivering. This is not common knowledge for everybody. So this is very valuable. Thank you. What's the best thing about being in business?
Oh, working with people. I mean, really the best thing for us is I love the variety of people that I work with, because I'm at a company that's an entertainment company with a tech component. So all of this is very busy. And as I mentioned at the, when you kind of asked me at the beginning about what we do, I mentioned our mission statement. The amplification of diverse voices, that's really important to us. We have diversity in terms of politics, diversity in terms of spiritual and faith beliefs, diversity in terms of types of entertainment, or we have high art, we have low art. We have all different stuff covered. So the biggest thrill to me is when we bring aboard a new podcast and they feel like they're getting out there and they're getting heard and seen, and we're giving them tips on how to improve their show and formatting tips, and whether it's the order of show and things that happen in the format of the show, or whether it's just improving their sound quality and giving them, telling them what tools to use. The idea that we can kind of be a conduit for all these voices, and that I actually get to talk to these people as part of my job as CEO. I talk to such a huge variety of people over the course of any given week. That's a real pleasure to me.
Love that answer. We're in the people business. People forget that sometimes. We are.
Yeah, I think it's really important in business. I mean, all business in a sense is a people business, right? It just depends. Are you B2B, B2C? How are you doing it? But especially when you're dealing with content and you're really dealing with what people are thinking, saying, putting out there in the world, it's so rewarding to have people, just being able to get their voices out there.
I love that. And I love what you said about being the conduit for people's voices, diverse voices. It's so important in the world today. So thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. Question number 3. We hear from this is kind of fun. This is my favorite question. We hear from other business owners are getting so much business that sometimes the chaos that comes with that can cause some feelings of overwhelm. Would you be willing to share your thoughts on that topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're a podcasting media startup. So even though we have literally over 70 people, maybe 100 people working with us in one way or another, it's constant work. And it's, sometimes, you come home, it's the end of the day, it's in the evening, you had dinner, you've done some more work, and it's like, can I get one more email out? And what do I choose to focus my time on? And one thing that I've learned, and I've never been a CEO before, the closest thing I came was when I made my own feature film and was kind of the CEO of the film, to some, I guess the way to put it, is I think I've become a little bit more definitive about it, my use of time in meetings, when I express my opinion, when I feel like the discussion's going on long enough and it's time for us to focus on a point. I think a lot of my job is to help people to focus who are working with us in various ways. It's part of my job to focus my partner. It's part of my partner's job to focus me. So that's a lot of what goes on. But I was in New York a few years ago, and I was in this really great establishment. It was just a couple of years old. It was a beer tasting room on the Upper East Side. And this couple that started it had been told, wine tasting, yes, beer tasting, no one will ever go for it. Turns out it's a wild success. You can go in there, and I would go and get the flight, like 3 different beers and little tastes, and usually go with a couple people that I was, visiting. And I had a great conversation with the woman who was the co-owner. And I said, congratulations, this must be great. And she says, do you know what the reward for hard work is? So I'll ask you the question, Brad. Do you know what the reward for hard work is?
What comes to mind for me is joy, freedom. That's what comes to mind for me. Go ahead.
Comes to mind for me too. Her answer was, the reward for hard work is more hard work. And I'm sure you've seen it in your own business, right? Like as you start to become more successful, as you draw people to what you're doing, there's more demands on your time.
It's true. It is true. I like what you said about setting some boundaries. Paraphrase, of course, though, but setting some boundaries and really getting geared into what's important and structuring your time and meetings and whatnot. As the CEO, as a business owner, that's just, it's critical, right? Otherwise, we don't have time for ourselves. So great points, Mark. I appreciate it. What other successful business owners, like yourself, of course, should be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Oh boy. Well, I've got a friend who is a super creative guy, Rick Castaneda, and he's got a business called Vibrant Penguin, which is a production company. He's a director, writer, producer. He has a feature film called All Sorts, which is in kind of a slow rollout distribution in theaters right now at various cities, which is a fantastic, funny, surrealist workplace comedy about a couple that discover there is a filing competition going on every month that for very high stakes that's hidden behind the walls of the business that they work in. And he has done some really incredible productions overseas, in the US, for clients, including the US Army and Imagine Dragons for the Riot Games. Just a really fantastic, different kind of business, definitely more of a couture business, I would say, in terms of creating really fantastic video work for clients, music videos, shows, TV shows, commercials. So I would always love to boost Rick in any way I can. He was also the guy behind the special effects on my movie Nightmare Code, and led a team that did 500 visual effects on our incredibly low budget movie. So big fan.
Very nice. I love how you highlighted, showcased him, explain what he does and what he's into, and that's great. Thank you very much. I look forward to connecting. All right, let's get to the crux of this. What piece of wisdom, Mark, would you share with other business owners?
One piece of wisdom that I would share with other business owners is simplify whenever you can. It is so easy to expand your focus. If you start getting traction, people come out of the woodwork, things come out of the woodwork, opportunities come out. And even one particular question about, what are we going to record here or something like that can lead to, with creative people, creative business people, or creative, producers, can lead to hours-long conversations. There's just got to be times where you say, like, what's the simplest way to do this? What's our fastest path to market? Just give me what the next step is. What are our next steps so that we can get off this call, go do our work, enjoy each other's company again in the future, but simplify what we're doing over here. Should we have 3 different URLs for something we're doing? No, try to make it just one. Anything where you can simplify will save your life in business.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. And it's a simple statement.
Sometimes hard to pull off.
That's what I was going to say.
Like those of us who are entrepreneurs, right? You've got to have a rangy mind to be an entrepreneur. To some degree, you're looking at possibilities. You're a dreamer, but if you're also thinking systems, you've got to have these different parts to you, and you got to make them all work. So it's very easy to go like, yeah, we could do like 12 of these. It's, Steve Jobs. This is a great story, that my favorite kind of story about this. Steve Jobs co-founds Apple, brings in John Sculley as CEO at a point when he felt he couldn't, handle that anymore because he wasn't experienced enough. Sculley eventually kicks him out of Apple. Cut to like a decade later, Apple has been all over the place, creating different products, licensing out their operating system, and they're in huge trouble. They bring Steve Jobs back. What's the first thing he does? He cuts 2/3 of their product line and eliminates all external licensing of their OS system, and decides to focus on creating one thing, the iMac, and turns to be major, major success. And that's all about opportunity cost. It's all about, focus, talent focus, leadership, really important.
I love it. This is the topic I speak on a lot. So I'm grateful that you brought it up. I like to hear it from other people as well. Simplicity is so important. It's easy to make things complex, and especially working with lots of visionaries. So I'm fortunate. I'm an integrator. So there's 4 of me for every 100, visionaries, right? And I love working with visionaries, but it can be maddening at times, because I'm the guy that comes in and does exactly what you said. What's the exact next action that we need to pull off right now in order to make this happen? So yes, we could talk about this for 5 hours. How do we move this forward? So I love it. And it really isn't difficult, but not everybody's structured that way. Not everybody has that kind of experience. So I'm glad you brought it up. But the key to moving the needle forward, is zeroing in, making things simple. Occam's razor, right? So the simplest path. So Mark, I appreciate that. It's simple, powerful advice, a little more profound than people may think. Oh, okay, simplify. Actually, you got to actually do the work to simplify.
A lot of work, and it's funny. And and look, I mean, you may be the guy that's there, helping to facilitate and integrate and all that, but you're a visionary too, right? So there's times where I want to be the visionary. Maybe that's going to be late at night after the meetings have ended, and then I'll set the agenda for the next day or the next week or the next month. But yeah, you have to have that ability to be able to, as much as possible, put a rope around it.
Indeed. Well, we're gonna move to wrap this up. I'm gonna ask you. There's 2 more questions, and we're gonna move to wrap. Actually 3 more questions. We'll make them rapid fire, right?
I won't count.
One, you've been really humble on this podcast, and I really want to highlight and showcase you, give you the opportunity to just speak into. So you've talked about ElectraCast, the podcast, things you're doing. I imagine you're working on some other things as well. So would you be willing to share just what campaign initiatives, what kind of cool things are you working on? Anything you want to share, whether it's ElectraCast, something else?
I want to share something from ElectraCast that's a really big deal. So our first scripted podcast, what's called a fiction podcast, is coming out on June 28th. And it's going to be 10 episodes that'll come out over the course of 4 weeks. So they're going to be coming pretty fast. They're about 10 minutes each. It's a little bit like listening to a feature film. And it's by this incredible writer-director, Jennifer Nash, who herself has been an actress. And it is based on true stories from her friends and family and herself from the start of COVID. And it's called The Last Saturday Night. It has some pretty big stars in it. Sherilyn Fenn is the lead from Twin Peaks, Gilmore Girls, and Shameless. We've got Eric Roberts, who's been in a zillion things, going back to Pope of Greenwich Village. We have what we believe is the final performance ever by Ed Asner from Mary Tyler Moore Show and Lou Grant, who has more Emmys for performing than any other man in the history of the Emmys. And the only actor to have Emmys for playing the same role and winning both a comedy and a drama Emmy. So it's a pretty big deal, and it's a big cast. And it's kind of a wild, fun, rollicking story, and kind of takes us back to the beginning of COVID when everything started locking down, hence The Last Saturday Night, the name of it. And we're just super, super proud of this one. We are very excited to get it out there. We're working on the marketing campaign right now, which will kick in June. And I'm hoping that it's one people listen to for a long time and hopefully demand more of.
That is absolutely fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I look forward to it myself. And I love the way you described it too. That sounds really exciting and truly fascinating. So cheers for the work that you've done already. And I look forward to seeing how this plays, how it comes together for you. So I celebrate you.
Thank you.
One last question before we let everybody know, because I know when they listen to this and watch it, they're going to want to reach out to you. So before we get to that, I ask everybody, look, we live to work actually. I knew I would get that wrong one of these days. Here we
Work
go.
to
After
live,
100,
live to work. Which one?
100 podcasts. It happens to be on yours. We work to live, not live to work. And you've represented that on this podcast. So I'd love to know, what's the most fun vacation you've ever had, Mark?
I've had a bunch of good ones, but the one that came to mind as soon as you said that is my honeymoon with my wife.
Nice.
And we are now celebrating 25 years. We're about to take a little trip to San Francisco for the long weekend, over Memorial Day weekend, doing a 4-day weekend. But our great vacation on our honeymoon was we spent 2 weeks right after we got married in Bali, in Indonesia.
Oh, nice.
And that island of Bali is a magical place. We rented a car. I got the international driver's license. We rented the car. We drove around. We had a reservation for the first 3 nights or 2 nights. And then we just went. And we were staying on places. I mean, honestly, I was spending like $20 a night to be on the beach, in an incredible place. And we just, the culture there, the people are lovely. It's very vibrant. If you're in a city like Ubud, there could be little festivals going on every night and different little storefronts. It's a lot of craftsmanship and art going on. They've got these crazy temples like the monkey temple, where a monkey stole my sunglasses, and it was a little rough getting it back. Needed repair afterwards. We did the thing where somebody we had somebody come and get us at 3:45 in the morning. And we hiked up the biggest mountain in the center of Bali and watched the sunrise over Lombok to the east. And it was just magical.
You're rubbing it in. This Bali's been on my list for a long time. And so now I'm going to have to step it up. So thank you.
It was a great way to kick off a marriage. I got to tell you that. It was a really nice way to start a marriage.
Nice. Well, I'm not taking that route, but that is definitely on my list.
You can enjoy it on your own too, I'm sure.
I just had a friend that came back there. He was there for like 6 months. And so now between the two of you, I'm about ready to pull the trigger on that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. When somebody watches this, they listen to it and they say, wow, that guy is fascinating, like I did throughout the podcast. What's the best way for them to reach out to you? Is it your website, social media? How do they reach out to you?
I think the best thing is if you want to write to me, we have ways to make contact with us on ElectraCast.com. And just to spell it out, ElectraCast is with an A in the middle, ElectraCast.com. We are on social media as well, on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as well. But I really think if you want to start a conversation, feel free to reach out there if you're interested. If you have a podcast that you would like to potentially be on an ElectraCast network, if you might even be interested in building a network as a network lead around a particular topic that you love or an expert in, or know people who are doing podcasts in that you could rope into this, again, reach out to us. You can say you heard me on your show and heard about this on the show, and we're happy to get back to you and start that conversation.
Mark, I really appreciate it. I celebrate the things that you're working on. You're making the world a better place. Truly, you walk the talk. It's great to have you on. I know this was a choice for you. You took a chunk out of your day to be here, to give back, to serve, and to share with people. So thank you very much. I celebrate you. Thanks for being on the
Brad,
show.
I thank you so much. This is a great interview. You do such a great job. I love your show. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to people through your platform.
My sincere pleasure. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high-level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.